What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Almost Functional 40K. Here tonight without Aiden for our weekly Council of the Fang. So tonight, just going to do a couple little things. I think I'm going to review our tier list for what is or isn't going to make the book after some more reveals and stuff that we've gotten. Also, I wanted to get into not specifically building army lists, but how to approach building army lists, what you need to put in your list, why you need to put it in your list, things like that. But first, the first thing I guess we'll do is we'll go ahead and jump into the tier list. But for those of you who aren't, please go ahead, like, share, subscribe. It really helps me out. Really helps the channel grow. Just with all the YouTube algorithms and stuff, that just really helps us out a lot. But with that being said, let's go ahead and bring this tier list up. So up top here, we got, this is the Blood Claws, Grey Hunters, Head Takers. That's Hounds of Mordecai, Ragnar, Terminators, the new Battle Leader, and the Wolf Priest. A lot of this was reveals, other than Ragnar and the Terminators and Hounds of Mordecai. We just were like, just we knew they were going to be in our minds. Terminators have been confirmed in the new releases. Logan is also guaranteed now, but with a new model, which is awesome. Same with Njal. He is now up here in the guaranteed slot. And Arjak going on up here with a brand new model into the no doubt. So Longfangs, Yolric, we got the Flyers and the Wolfen are in our more than likely. So we got all these dreads down here and probably not, but from some of the stuff we're hearing, some of them I believe are going to go up. This is so the pack leader or the battle leader and Terminator armor. I don't think it's going to make it now. I don't believe any of the Thunderwolf characters are going to make it through now. So let's go ahead and bring all of those down here. This is Wolf Scouts. I've heard rumors that they could be coming in like a kill team box. So they may or may not be in the codex, but I believe we would be getting them possibly shortly, not too far after. So I'll leave them more than likely because they're not going to be in the book, I don't believe, but I don't think they're actually going away. These, I believe, are Longfangs, which I believe are going to move down to Who Knows now with some of the stuff we've seen. Same with Yorick. He missed the model upgrade for most of the characters, so I'm not really sure on him anymore. Wolfen and the two Flyers, I'm still pretty certain will make the cut. Thunderwolves, I've heard that they may be coming in, so I want to put them more than likely, but I don't know. I still got a gut feeling something bad might happen there. So I'm going to leave them in Who Knows, but there have been some rumblings that they are in. I've heard that him, Murderfang, and Bjorn make the cut. Heard that Wolfen Dreadnought makes the cut. So I'll put them all in Who Knows, because these are all rumors, so these aren't like anything 100% confirmed, so I wouldn't put more than likely, but I will move them up to Who Knows, which before I thought most of them were for sure gone. This bottom row I'm pretty much still pretty much sure gone. And no shot for this Logan. That's confirmed. All of this is, I believe, probably not, although the Veneral Dread, who knows, because we are keeping a lot of our dreads. Fenrisian Wolves, I believe, dropped to probably not. I believe the Head Takers Wolves are kind of going to fill that role. And I believe that's a chance that's a dual data sheet. Um, so I think this is more where we're at right now. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 uh, guarantees out of the 20, which leaves us 9. We've got 4 here, which was put us at 15. Although the scouts may or may not be in the book, they may become in a kill team box, which would technically give us 21 data sheets. So that would leave us 5 or 6, which I'll put them in the order I think they're going to make it from what I've heard. So we'll put Bjorn here, Murder Fang here, these dreads here. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I think Long Fangs would be that 6th spot if they scouts are going to be their own thing. Which means we might lose the Iron Priest. Wolfguard, I believe, are definitely gone. And unfortunately, I think Ulrich is going to be gone now. So that's pretty much the new order. This is in. This is in. Might be a kill team, not necessarily in Codex. And then I believe this will be in. And if they go kill team, I think Longfang slide in there. Possibly Ulrich over Longfangs and a surprise there, but I believe it'll be Longfang. So without his old Wolfguard unit to lead and Bloodclaw and Zimby and Tacticus, they didn't upgrade his model size like they did everybody else. So he would really, really look out of place now with the range refresh. So I believe we are going to lose Ulrich. So that's pretty much it for that. That's just a quick look at the what I believe is going to make the Codex, which with the way they've been doing the releases, I believe we will be getting ours in about 3 weeks. The reveal for the pre-order, because we got Thousand Suns reveal for their pre-order this week, and they actually go on pre-order next week. Then there'll be a 2-week pre-order, and then the week they actually drop, I believe, is when we'll get the peak at the Wolf order for the weekend after that, and then 2 weeks of the Wolf order, and then it drops. And I'm guessing we'll get an army box in Combat Patrol just like the Thousand Suns did. So I'm looking at probably we'll be able to have the boxes in our hands, those of us who don't get them early, around June 20th, which would mean we could get them and everything would be legal. I'm not sure with the whole range refresh if we're going to get everything in the first wave or if they're going to do it in the first release or if they're going to do it in waves. If they'll do like the Combat Patrol and the Army box, and we'll later get something else that has like Logan and stuff in it. I'm kind of hoping they give it to us all at once because I want to play with everything. But we'll see how that works out. But we should definitely be getting the Army box and stuff shown for pre-order in about 3 weeks. But that's it on that. The other thing I wanted to get into was list building. So I know I do a lot of list building on this channel. I don't necessarily always talk about the concept behind list building. There is a lot that can go into building a list because when you first look at a book, I know a lot of times myself, and I believe most other people as well, we look at how much damage units can do, and that makes us determine whether or not we think what is and what isn't good based on how much damage it does. But in the current editions of Warhammer, holding objectives, scoring secondary cards, stuff like that is really, really important. So there are other things outside damage and survivability, which are the 2 things you can most easily determine off of data sheets that come in big when playing the game. So you need to still have stuff that does damage because you need to be able to remove your opponent's assets that can score points. But you also need units that can perform actions and hold objectives, yet also survive on them, but also have enough OC to control it if someone else makes a play on it. So those are lots of things you have to factor in. And then you also have to factor in what type of list are you building. So the most generic type of list, you're going to have a few decent amount of gameplay units, I guess I would call them, like scouts, infiltrators, JPIs, units that can move on objectives, screen out the opponent, spew actions, things like that, where they don't really need to be able to do damage. If they can, that's a bonus, but they just can get places quickly. They can put decent amount of OC onto an objective, maybe fight another person's skirmishing unit. So that's one type of unit you need to look at. The other is also your damage dealing units. Ragnar with Blade Guard, Thunderwolves with the characters in them. You can think of like Lancers, Ballistas, more long range damage. Then you need survivable units, which like Terminators are survivable. Thunderwolves are also survivable. Thunderwolves fill a bunch of roles for Space Wolves, which is why you see them in a lot of lists. They can kind of do damage and be survivable and hold objectives and screen the opponent and give you board control, which is why you find the army leans on them a lot right now, because they really, really simplify the game by getting a bunch of functions out of one unit. That's why myself and a lot of others find them to be just one of the best things in Space Wolves right now. We'll see how that's affected in the new book. But units that more fill just certain specific roles on their own. You have Blade Guard, which you attack a Judiciar, a Chaplain, or Ragnar to them. Can change their role in the list slightly, but they put out a decent amount of attacks. And Champions of Rush, you can really buff that up. You can also give them +1 to wound to help get around their strength 5. Chaplain automatically gives them +1 to wound. Wolfguard, same thing. You give them Yolric, they get the full reroll to hit, full reroll to wound into monsters and characters and vehicle units. So those are some of the non-Thunderwolf, really, really good damage dealing units in Space Wolves. Also, Murder Fang is really, really good damage dealer. He's not super survivable, whereas Blade Guard and Wolf Guard can be in certain situations just because it's a bunch of bodies with invols. So I find those are your best, just straight damage units with some decent survivability in them, that can pressure your opponent and clear objectives and stuff to deny them points. Also, so units for scoring for us, infiltrators, you guys hear me talk about them all the time. I deploy them on my back line, holding my back objective most of the time, and really, in 99% of my games, they don't even move. They just get me defend. They stop the opponent dropping behind my army. They help shut down people trying to get engaged on all fronts from a table quarter. They help shut down doing teleport home. Not teleport home. What's it called? Is it still called teleport homers? The one where you can do it in your deployment zone or the middle of the table. They can help shut that down from your side, behind enemy lines. They just really help shut a lot of that stuff down. And especially on missions where your backfill objective scores for primary, they just really, really just do a bunch of things that you don't even have to think about. It's just auto happening, which is really, really nice because it lets you concentrate on other parts of the board, because they're unchargeable out of reserve. And if you don't leave a big hole for people to rapid ingress between your front line and them, even all these armies that have the 6-inch deep strikes now, the 12 still gets around that. So then you really only have to have like an 18-inch gap between you and another unit, because the 6 from the other unit and the 12 from them, still that's a big hole you can leave without people being able to drop into it. The other unit I pretty much always take is scouts. They infiltrate, which is great for blocking other people's infiltrate, especially if people have like the 9 Nurgling units that they like to spread across the board, which can really, really slow up our frontline units because Space Wolves normally don't have a lot of shooting. We like to get up the board and get into your face. So if they're able to screen out the whole middle of the board, you spend a turn or two going over these really, really annoying speed bumps that prevent you from getting into the stuff you want and force you to expose more of your damage dealing than you want to deal with them, because things like Nurglings are just really, really ridiculously hard to kill for what they are. So being able to have a unit of scouts, at least one, lets you, if you can drop it first, that's amazing because you can clear the middle of the board. But otherwise, you can stop them from, you can choose one flank to keep open for yourself to make plays down. And then the scout move, when the opponent doesn't have a lot of infiltrating at the block, I like to drop them where if I draw and engage, an area denial, secure, extend, anything like that early, I can score those points easily with just the scouts without having to expose anything important and just stage it. The scouts do have the up down at the end of your opponent's turn to help you with mission play later in the game. Me personally, when I only run one unit of scouts, that doesn't really happen because they normally have to screen or move block or score me points turn one early. Then they normally die. So when I run one unit of scouts, they're really, really an early play unit that goes away. When I've run two units of scouts, the second one is one I find does up down the whole game. So if you're running multiple units of scout, that up down can come really important. But I find if you're only running one, it's not, very rarely comes up because they do something else early for you to let you stage and protect other assets for your go turn. Especially in a list that has Logan, you really want to have a turn where you put a lot in at the same time to get full advantage of his once per game full reroll to charge, full reroll to hit for the whole army. So being able to stage without having to expose anything to score points is just a really, really useful thing for scouts. JPIs move 12 inches, can go through walls because they're infantry. So they're really, really great at mission play. The charge mortals, decent amount of attacks with +1 AP, so great at clearing other people's screen, killing other people's skirmish units. And with those charge mortals, they're not horrible at running into and finishing off a vehicle or monster that has, a couple wounds left. They do a couple on the charge, and then just with the amount of attacks they put in neg one, get them to fail one save, finish something off. Deep strike them if you need to. I rarely do. I normally start them on the table so they can advance up or do something early. So JPIs are another great unit for that. And cursors, not real big on cursors this edition. If you're running like a shooty heavy army, then be able to get you the +1. I believe they give you +1 to hit against what they shot, but I haven't read them so long, I don't remember. They did something like that. They give you some sort of bonus if they shoot something. So if you're running a shooting heavy list, maybe there's a play for incursors, but not normally. Intercessors, sticky objectives is nice. They do put out a lot of shots now, so they're really, really good at cleaning up other people's screens. So intercessors have a decent place. Heavy intercessors, I haven't run much just because of the points. Just because I've been running like Canis and lots of Thunderwolves, so just haven't been a lot of points for stuff like that. But they are decently hard to kill, being in Gravis armor. So for a little skirmishing unit, that's really, really nice. But those are some of my favorites. If you only got a couple points left, you can always throw in the Fenrisian Wolves. They're OC0, so they can't do a lot of mission play, but they're great for screening out your backfield in tandem with infiltrators or move blocking stuff or just, anything like that. And if you're able to trigger Saga of Majesty early, then they can start doing some extra cool stuff, but I only take them if I have like 30 points left and nothing else to really do. I don't normally start the list with them. They're kind of like a last minute throw in most of the time. And then, then our survivable units, like I said, always Thunderwolves, Blade Guard, and Wolf Guard with the invols. Anything with invols is swingy. but can be more annoying than people want. Wolfen can do a lot of damage, but they're not super for survival right now. And at OC0, they have the same problem as the Fenrisian wolves. They just can't do much mission play for you, which is why I don't bring them very often. But hopefully that changes in the new book. They get a little more stuff in them because I've always loved the Wolfen models. I used to run them a lot last edition before they were OC0. And then another thing that a lot of people were running a few months ago with the Phobos Lieutenant was Reavers. Since he lost the Scoot move in charge, so it made it a little harder to trigger Saga Majesty early with him. They've kind of taken a little more of a back seat. I haven't seen them in as many lists, but I'm actually going to be playing around with the list, running some more Reavers, because the shoot move with the Lieutenant is still nice for helping to deny people objectives. Then running one unit with the Reliever Lieutenant to make their aura 6-inch. Then they can sometimes hide in those center ruins near the middle objective and extend that 6-inch to really shut down people trying to move on it. Anything OC1 really can't walk on within the range, or it doesn't even count as being there. And if you make them OC0, they can't do actions. So there's some really good play there with Reavers. They take a little more thought and positioning than some of the other units, especially now that you can't scoot and then charge with the Phobos Lieutenant. But I still think they're a really solid unit, especially now that they got the +1 AP on their combat blades. They still fight decently well, especially in Champions of Russ. So I do like Reavers. Looking over that. Terminators. Not big on our Terminators right now. I run Logan on foot by himself sometimes. I've tried putting him with Terminators. Hopefully they get a little bit of a buff in the new book when it comes out. Because that'd be cool if they were actually really good to do a Logan Arjac Terminator brick that was just hard for people to deal with and actually did damage like you would think something like that would do. What else? Bjorn. Bjorn's a nice tech piece. He's hard to kill. Could cause people CP. He's not as killy as I'd like him to be. I wish he had twin linked instead of lethal, because lethal really takes away from sustain. But if you can sustain and then twin linked with him, that would just make him a little better. And then his guns, give him the Hellfrost with the flamer shots. They can do a little bit in the infantry, but Melt is only 2 shots. Assault Cannon's only 6. At AP 0 if you don't get the Mortals. Give him the last cannon, but that's not a lot of shots. So Bjorn isn't really as killy as I want him to be, but for 190 points, he's a little pricey, but he is harder to kill than people expect sometimes and can cause people to have to spend extra CP. But I found since his point update, I haven't been bringing him as much, whereas I was bringing him before. At Jordan saying Bjorn is bad. I wouldn't say Bjorn is bad. I'd say he's overcosted, personally. If he was a little cheaper, I like him being hard to kill and denying CP. Okay. All right. He meant Bay. Bjorn is Bay. Yeah, I love Bjorn. I wish he was a little bit cheaper, but I love having something like that in the middle of the army that's hard to kill and can force people to spend extra CP in the key fights. I had a bunch of lists I was running where I had him and Foot Logan, and once everything else kind of pushed, Bjorn would push middle, Foot Logan would drop near him, and anything that kind of dropped in behind, they would actually be able to clear pretty well themselves, and they could score you secures and sabotages and stuff like that middle board without being easy to kill, and being on the smaller bases, he's easy to hide. If he was more like 160, 170, I'd probably bring him every time. At 190, just with running lots of Thunderwolves, I just haven't been lately been able to. Well, I've been running Canis Rex. That's another reason. So I haven't had the points for Bjorn. Play around with some non-Canis Rex lists. There's points in there for Bjorn. What else? Murder Fang. I went over Murder Fang. Murder Fang is a great blender. especially in Champions of Rust on your Logan go turn and the 6-inch pylon. Uh, you got to be careful with him because he does die easy. I like to rapid ingress him and then get him in on a flank, and he can normally pick up 2, 3, 4 units on Logan's go turn pretty consistently, especially if you have Beast Slayer up. If you're going to some bigger targets, you can give him a +1 to wound. He pretty much wounds everything in the game on 2s at that point. With Twin Linked, hitting on 3s, 4 rerolls, sustained lethal. He can get really, really dumb. Wolfen, Dreadnought, and Vanderbilt Dreadnought, I'm not too big on. If we do keep them, like some people are saying in the new book, hopefully they get something a little better than what they have now. Otherwise, I don't think they'll still see much play. Wolf Scouts pretty much filled the same role as regular Scouts, but for 10 points more, you get some extra weapon options. I don't find that's worth the 10 points because they're really just sacrificial pieces most of the time, the Scouts, so paying 10 extra points really defeats the purpose. And that's really pretty much the core of what you see in most Wolf lists right now. Outriders can find a place now that they do the 2 damage on the charge and +1 strength. They're fast, they're decently durable, put out a decent amount of attacks, okay shooting, big bases for screening, can team up well in Stormlance with Thunderwolves, but they have the same problem Thunderwolves do, is where they have to go around buildings. So sometimes if you get too much of that in the same list, you just start bottlenecking yourself. So in a more infantry-heavy type list, maybe throw a couple of those in just for 80 points. They're real fast to get out and screen and hold an objective at OC2 each, T5, 4 wounds. ATVs at 8 wounds each. You can either attach them to the Outriders or run one for 60 points. I've had good luck running one when I didn't have the points to take another Scout Squad or Outriders or Reavers or something. He's got those 60 points. I like one ATV over to Fenrisian Wolf Squads. Not sure what else to really get into on those. Those are like the main things I've been using and having good experience with. Glance back here at my shelf. Oh, Inceptors. Inceptors with the 6-inch deep strike. It was better when it was 3, but still, that's not bad. You run a 3-man. They're great for mission play. They have decent shooting, depending on whether you want to go assault bolters or plasma, depending on what you're using them for. You can go a 6-man and really, really just drop them in to hit something hard, in which case they're less of a mission play piece because they're kind of really, really pointy at that point. So you want them to really get more than one shot off. So you have to play a little more careful with them. Whereas if you've only got 3-man, they're still kind of pricey for 3 guys, but the 6-inch deep strike's nice, and so you can use them to do some stuff, try to snipe out a little character here or there, get you behind enemy lines, deploy teleport homers. I think it's called something else now, but I keep calling it deploy teleport homers. But that's basically my thoughts on that. So those are like the cores of like a standard, just play 40k straight up. You want some damage dealing units that can go remove your opponent's ability to score points, and then units that can be places to do sec, do your containments, do your sabotages, do your recover assets that are easy to hide, but also can move fast, that aren't too cheap, aren't too expensive, so you can sacrifice them. But then you need units that are durable with decent OC to go take and hold objectives, but also fast. You need units fast enough to go contest and take your opponent's objectives. Because sometimes holding one extra objective isn't needed if you're able to remove one from your opponent. So you can flip that 5-point swing either way by holding one more, by being durable, or by being fast enough to remove one from them that they're hoping to be able to hold. So that's like core basic 40k. You have some skirmishing units, and then you have your damage dealing units. There's also, then you can kind of like counter play off that. You're like, all right, I'm not really going to bring much skirmishing, I'm just going to bring lots of damage dealing and just run out and kill all your skirmishing units and bully you on primary. This is kind of what Chaos Knights do, although they have lots of little knights so they can't play mission. This is what Wolf Jail was really, really good at. They just push you back in your deployment zone, keep you from being able to come out, bully you on primary, not necessarily have great secondary play, but kill your little units and bottle your army in your deployment zone and just deny you being able to score points. So instead of just playing straight up 40k, you can go something like that, skew hard to I'm just going to bully primary and just deny you the ability to play secondary, even though my secondary isn't that great. So that's where you can really get out in the weeds on some stuff like, all right, here's basic, and now you go counter basic 40k. You can also go the other way, which is what kind of like what a lot of LR do, like Inari and stuff, is where they just have lots and lots of units that do okay damage with nothing to score points and overwhelm you with just how many units they have. To really hurts them and purge the foe, which is one of the reasons I found Thunderwolf, Space Wolves just crush Eldari, because all those little units just don't have the profiles to kill Thunderwolves, and Thunderwolves just pick up little units really, really fast. So that's when you start getting into those skewing one way or the other, where 40k starts becoming a little paper, rock, scissors, because most of the time now, with how they balance the game, there's not a lot of armies that just crush everything like there used to be in editions past. Occasionally, you'll get something that can do that for a month or two before they nerf it. But for the most part, everything has something that it really, really needs to avoid. If the person playing both are on equal player skill, you probably lose that matchup most of the time. But if you get into a matchup against someone who you have much better player skill then you can still win those games, which is just player skill will always matter, because when and how to counter things is just a big part of 40k. Um, so without having Aiden or anybody else here tonight, I don't think I have too much else. I think that kind of covered everything I kind of wanted to talk about. I know there's a few people in chat. Does anybody have any questions or anything else they would like me to get into or talk about before we wrap this one up a little short, since I'm flying solo? All right. Well, once again, thank you everybody for watching. Like, share, subscribe, all that cool stuff. Once the book and stuff drops, we're going to have tons of content for you, reviewing the book, reviewing every unit, different detachments, different builds and different detachments. So we'll have a lot more coming for you guys here soon. We're kind of still in this waiting pattern, so we can only do so much. That's why I was trying to get into just generic list building, archetype type stuff. And last week we got into the hobby type stuff that'll carry over the ideas into the new book that isn't necessarily index specific. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you next time.